All right, everyone, welcome to Street City Studio. I'm John, and in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about the state of things over at Hasbro. For those of you following me and been here for a couple videos, you know I'm a big fan of Hasbro figures. I collect the vintage collection. I collect Marvel Universe. And both of those are Hasbro products, but especially like the vintage collection is a current running line, right? I am currently buying Hasbro product as it comes out, right? But not just that. Again, Marvel Epic Heroes has recently caught my attention, right? With their Marvel figures and even their Marvel live action figures, right? But both, right? The animated figures and their live action figures, because I was a big collector of the Marvel Universe figures and live action based figures, right? Grab one here. Right. The Marvel Universe figures. Right. And then their live action movie figures. I was a big fan when those were really doing well. I was a big fan, and I still am, right? I'm still collecting old Marvel Universe figures that I don't have yet, or army building even my multiple man and stuff like that, right? But again, they're putting out new product. I have a Cyclops, and I still like this figure, right? I have several versions of Marvel Universe Cyclops, and this figure's still decent. Right? But again, we're here to kind of talk a little bit about these layoffs. Right? As a Hasbro, again, I don't like phrasing it like that. I am not a Hasbro fan, but the IPs that I collect are in Hasbro's hands. Right? So I collect Hasbro stuff. But like many of you this morning, I woke up, checked Facebook and YouTube, and all kinds of reports that Hasbro has laid off something like 1,100 people, right? 1,100 people. And they said like 20% of their workforce, or 20% of the company, right? A large chunk of the company. They said it was an entire office building got closed because of this. And that's an astounding number. That's a big number, 1,100 people. If you were telling me 20 people, 50 people, 100 people, I mean, that sounds like, okay, sure. But a whole office, 1,100 people? Man, that is so frustrating. That is... I can't even put into words. Again, I don't work for Hasbro, so I'm not out of job. But I like to think that this affects me. You know, I don't know how exactly this is going to affect me, but the worry is that it might. It's big enough that it might, right? Is it going to affect the toys hitting the shelves? Probably. But not just that. That's 1,100 families, right? And it's Christmas, man. It's right before Christmas. And you just laid off 1,100 people right before Christmas? And I think the size of that number really inspires me question, right? What kinds of positions are these that the company feels like it's going to be better off without those positions filled? And if the company feels like it would do without those positions filled, why were they there in the first place? All right? 1,100 people laid off seems like a whole building of frivolous expenditures. Right? And I don't want to point no finger at the people being laid off, and I don't want it to sound like that in my free speaking. Right? I'm speaking too loosely maybe. But my question, I don't doubt that those people are working every day. Right? My question or concern is that the people over them, laying them off, aren't working, right? It's because they had, 600 or 700 people let go earlier this year, right? And they're still laying off more people, right? And that's, to me, that sounds like if you keep bringing people in, you bring in 1,100 people, right? Squeeze them hard for 2 years or whatever, and then lay them off. And then 2 more years down the line, you bring in another 1,100 people, squeeze them for 2 years, and then lay them off again. That's bad practice, right? That's the people at the top not doing no work, getting rich off of the people at the bottom, and then laying off all the people at the bottom once all the work's done. That's what it sounds like. And I can't support that. I'm not a fan of that. That sounds like dirty practice. And again, I don't want to say that that's what Hasbro's doing. I'm not there. I'm not behind the closed doors to know what decisions are being made and why they're being made. But from the outside looking in, from my perspective, that's kind of what it looks like. And I don't like that. And it informs my decisions on where I'll spend my money and how I'll spend my money. Things like these HasLabs. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of crowdfunding a $1 billion company. Right? That's for small people like me. That's to offset the difficulties of industry for small businesses. Hasbro should not be dipping its toes into no crowdfunding. It is not a small business. It is not a small company. It's the kind of company that can lay off over 1,000 people on Christmas. Right? And that's the kind of sympathy you get from a company of that kind of size, right? A company like Hasbro, they can't afford to have feelings and care about the people underneath them. Their only job is to make money for the people sitting at that table at the top. And if you go to work for them for a year, give them everything, and then they lay you off, I mean, yeah, right? They paid you the minimum dollar to get the top work, and then they're going to cash out, right? They got everything they needed. That's what it sounds like to me, right? And that goes back to like that Pinkerton incident. I don't want to get into that too much, right? But there's a list compiling of what seems to be bad practices. And I don't know what to do with that, I guess. As a fan of these intellectual properties, right? I don't want to abandon Star Wars. I don't want to abandon Marvel, right? I'm a big fan of Star Wars. I grew up with Star Wars. And I would hate to feel like feel like I have to walk away from it, right? But even, I'm not a big fan of the new Star Wars trilogy, that last trilogy with Rey and Kylo Ren, right? I'm not a big fan. But that's okay. I don't have to love every movie to still be a big fan of Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon and Chewbacca and Luke Skywalker, No matter how many movies they make, I'm still a fan of the ones I watched growing up. Right? And so I don't, I know a lot of people complain about the direction of the franchise, and I care about the direction of the franchise, but I can still separate where it's going from where it's been, I can still remember caring about and enjoying Star Wars, right? Getting excited when them lightsabers lit up for that first time, and you get excited. Oh man, that's so cool, right? I might not get excited when I see Kylo Ren's messy, sloppy, wet-looking lightsaber with all its spitting and all that extra stuff they did. I'm not a big fan of everything they did with those movies. Just the subtlety of what they changed with the lightsabers, even. I didn't like all the animated flames popping off of the lightsaber and stuff. Right? I'm a big fan of your classic clean sabers. Right? But again, I don't think I even know exactly what I'm saying. I'm not telling you guys to go out and boycott. I'm not saying don't buy their products. If anything, I almost want to say go buy more products so they don't lay anybody else off, right? But I don't know that that's any kind of solution either. I don't know that I have a solution, right? I'm just here to say that's bad news. That sucks. I'm sorry to hear that, guys. Everybody that works at Hasbro, I don't really think anybody from Hasbro is watching me, but if anybody that got laid off is watching, man, I really feel for you. I've been laid off, so I definitely know the feeling, and it sucks. I'm sorry to hear this. There's some bad news this morning, guys. Everybody. I kind of want to pull out the old tablet and try and find some good news articles just to change the mood, right? Because I try to keep this channel pretty positive. And I mean, I have all kinds of opinions, right? But I try to bite my tongue on the negativity and just kind of be a positive force. And I think that's what I'm trying to do with this video, but I don't really know how. I think, it's a bad day. It's bad news. Hopefully there's some course correction and Hasbro can get their focus back on track, right? You just focus on quality products, focus on right, doing right by the fan bases, right? And because I think, I've said before, I think a company has a right to operate as it sees fit within reason, right? Just because we say we need a Han Solo figure this year doesn't mean they need to make us a Han Solo figure this year. That's up to them. But if they don't want to make any Han Solo figures anymore, let somebody else, right? And that's, if you don't want to make Marvel figures, let somebody else, right? If you're not going to make figures for the She-Hulk show, and the Netflix shows and the new movies, right? Let someone else, because they will sell. You out here talking about they ain't making sales. Well, from my perspective at least, there ain't nothing to buy. Right? I don't buy Marvel Legends. There's plenty of Marvel Legends on the shelves, but I don't buy them. None of them. I don't collect Marvel Legends. And likewise, Star Wars is on the shelves, but half of the ones people want can't never find on a shelf. Right? So you got a couple problems, right? You're not making the toys people want, and when you do, people can't find them. So you got to focus on demand, and you got to focus on distribution. Right? If you want to make money off of these IPs, you have to focus on these IPs. Right? Stop making bad decisions, right? Like putting face characters in an army trooper set. Don't nobody think that's a good idea. I can't imagine anybody that thought that was a good idea. And it's happened several times now, isn't it? It almost seems like bad decisions being made on purpose. But, again, I'm not behind them closed doors, so I'm just talking, right? I'm just talking and drinking some coffee and playing with some toys. And I will say, I want to reinforce again, I don't like sounding like an apologetic or an apologist, right? I'm not trying to sound like a Hasbro apologist. But I've fallen off of Star Wars toys 10 years ago. So having recently, 2 years, 3 years, come back to Star Wars toys, I'd hate to fall off again. Right? And likewise with Marvel, right? Marvel's been out of 3 3/4 for 10 years. I'd hate for them to get back out as soon as they got back in. So, I don't know what decisions need to be made, but somebody needs to make them. And enough with the bad publicity. Keep your names out of the papers. That's not good, right? Keep your name out of them headlines. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe any publicity's good publicity, they say, but I definitely don't like hearing stories like Pinkertons raid a fan's house, or 1,100 layoffs, right? That's tough stuff, man. Maybe don't hire 1,100 people that you don't see being, permanent positions. That's a lot of people to be let go. That tells me that you're not being very careful with your resources, or you thought to take advantage of those 1,100 people maybe. Hmm? It's one or the other, right? Either you're being real careless, or you really just don't care about those people, right? You're using people like you would use a pencil. Right? Just to sign your check and then throw it in no garbage and get you a new pencil next time you need one. But people ain't pencils. Right? These are people with families right before Christmas. There's a toy company right before Christmas, right? And I'll tell you what, I don't know about you guys, but there's nothing I like giving for Christmas like a toy. I love giving toys for Christmas. Probably to people around me. Like, I'll give my girlfriend a toy and she'll look at me sideways. I like giving toys. I got you good stuff too. You know? But again, aside from the right motivations and the right focus, I don't know what to say. I don't know what the solution would be. But again, I know the place to start. I don't know every step along the path. But the place to start is going to be reevaluate, right? Reassess, take a look around, decide what you want to focus on, right? If you've got too many IPs that you can't give Marvel the right attention, well, just like G.I. Joe, right? They handed G.I. Joe off to Hiya Toys so that Hiya Toys could do some G.I. Joes. And I don't think anybody, well, I don't want to say nobody. I don't think a lot of people are upset about that, right? So there might be some loyalists who like Hasbro making G.I. Joe for sure. But there's some nice, Hiya's making some nice looking figures. I don't have any of those G.I. Joes in hand yet. But they definitely look great. They look like adult collector quality, right? Not this kid play toy quality, right? So, if you don't think you want to make money, Cyclops beat me up. If you think you can't make money on that property, or even if you think maybe you just don't want to make money on that property, fine, let somebody else. There's people that are happy to step in and do it. Right? All kinds of little companies that'll probably work a deal. Right? I'm sure that's what Hiya did. Hiya probably took I don't want to say took a hit, but probably worked a good deal to be able to do that, you know? I don't know what kind of percentage or arrangements they've made with each other, but I'm sure it was to Hasbro's benefit, right? They got to be getting something out of it. They're probably making a good little percentage on those sales. Right? And it says, if you can't give Marvel figures attention, let somebody else. I'm sure somebody's called you and asked you for permission and you said no, right? And again, Hiya is a great example of what I'm talking about. You ain't got to hire 1,100 people to course correct and then lay them off as soon as you think you're corrected. Right? Outsource. Outsource to people who know, right? Maybe it's not a permanent job. Right? Contractors or whatever. Right? Seasonal office workers. I don't know. Right? But there's got to be better ways than laying people off right before Christmas, I guess. It just seems like such a hard hit. It seems like such a cold tactic for a toy company. And again, I know a toy company is still a company. I'm not ignoring that at all. But even a big billion-dollar company, right, should walk a line. Right? And I don't even want to say where that line needs to be exactly, but it definitely informs where I want to spend my money. Right? And I think that's the whole point. Hasbro, I know you ain't listening, but if you are, refocus, right? Because things like this definitely make people like me consider, right? Because while I like buying your toys, I don't necessarily have to, you know. I do make my own toys. Right? And you could even argue, well, maybe they're not the same quality, or they're not whatever. I mean, that's neither here nor there. If I can't get a figure, I will make it. And it sits on my shelf just the same, right? They didn't make me no Taskmaster, so I made one. Right? And it's been that way with lots of figures and lots of characters, right? They didn't make me no Groot. He's too tall there, so I made one. Right? And yeah, I'll give it to you. They're Hasbro parts, right? But even to further make my point, I've started making my own parts, right? That's my head. That's a 3D scan of my head that I scanned, I printed, I painted, right? I don't need Hasbro to make my toys. I will make them. But I do like buying toys. And I like when they look good, right? When they look good, there's nothing like getting that figure in my hand. And I think I'm just trying to say, man, I'm tired of this negative news about Hasbro. It's sad to hear. It's a sad state of things. I don't know what else to think. It sucks. I kind of don't want to leave it there, but I don't know what else to say. Other than just, you know, let's try and focus on some positivity, and hopefully next year we'll be doing better, I guess. Right? I was hoping that this Epic Heroes line and stuff was a good sign of times to come. But this news sounds like bad news. And it's definitely, I mean, it is bad news. It's definitely not good news. But hopefully all these families can land on their feet. Hopefully all the collectors and fans are not kicked around too much in this whole process. Hopefully we can all go about our collecting and enjoying the fandoms as we normally do without a lot of drama. Because it's been getting more dramatic in the toy communities, I think. There's a lot of infighting and a lot of that kind of stuff going on these days. It's so common. So we definitely don't need more of it, right? We need less of it. We need more positivity and less infighting, more good news and less bad news. But I'm gonna probably get off of here, get to some of these customs, do some work around here, try and get the mood back up around here. If you want to check me out on Facebook, check me out. It's John Wayna, Wayna. If you want to check out my photography on Instagram, it's Street City Toys. Not Street City Studio like this channel, but Street City Toys. But otherwise, you guys have a good day. Try and stay positive. Keep playing with them toys, and I'll talk to you again soon.